You talk about in the book ketogenic intermittent fasting, really popular things right now. What's the research showing about this in optimal performance? These two diet fads, you could say, but approaches, let's call them.
Right. Yeah. So when it comes to vigorous exercise, essentially when you're exercising at 70% VO2 max or higher, and when you go into anaerobic activity, you don't want to be on a ketogenic diet. I mean, the data is extremely clear that carb loading prior to vigorous exercise does improve performance. Even if you are keto adapted for months, you're not going to get the same level of benefits on vigorous exercise when you carb load. So carb loading with appropriate carbs at an appropriate time prior to vigorous exercise will improve performance. And if you're on a keto diet, your vigorous performance will suffer. So we need to understand that. And athletes need more carbohydrate. Like, they are working out, they are burning glucose. And so especially at anaerobic activity, that's the only fuel you can use during anaerobic activity is glucose, essentially. And so when you are a vigorous exercise performer, you need a good amount of carbs, particularly like around 300 to 400 grams per day to fuel your workouts. And then I think you asked intermittent fasting. Yeah.
Yep.
So I don't always intermittent fast on every single day. I think the two best ways to do this is like 16-8, where basically you skip breakfast and you start eating at noon for like an 8-hour window. And so you eat just basically 2 meals a day. That's not a bad way to go. But for most high performing athletes, their body's going to be craving 3 meals a day.
Yeah. And one of the things I also read when you were discussing that eating frequency is that the studies you found were that eating your entire day's protein that is, in a 4-hour window had no negative effects on muscle preservation. Does that mean you advocate for sometimes getting that protein, most of it within one meal, let's say, even if you split it, getting the bulk of the protein in one meal as opposed to splitting it throughout the day?
Well, I think a lot depends on activity level and quality protein and things like that. I will say that probably for increasing and maximizing muscle protein synthesis, around 40 grams of protein 4 times a day is probably optimal. And even consuming 30 grams of casein protein, which is a longer acting protein, 30 minutes before bedtime, can actually help increase muscle protein synthesis. A lot of data is starting to come out that you want to really load your protein early in the morning, which sets your satiety throughout the entire day. Now, it's easiest to, this is the sort of the conundrum. It's so easy for people to just skip breakfast. However, consuming a high protein breakfast like steak and eggs is one of the best ways to sort of make people feel better, give them the energy for their workouts, and set their satiety for the entire day. So I love a strong high protein breakfast. And especially when you are athletic, most people, you're going to see a lot of benefits by loading your protein earlier in the morning if you're an athlete or if you're lifting a lot of weights, things like that.